The black silence of space stretched endless, cold, and empty. Stars burned faintly in the distance, their lights swallowed by the great shadows of drifting nebulae. Out of that silence, something began to move, a shape unlike any other, vast and sharp, sliding through the void with purpose. It was the Titan-class warship of humanity, the first of its kind, and the largest machine ever built by human hands. The ship did not need to announce its presence. Its size alone carried meaning. Entire alien fleets had been seen before, but nothing matched this silent beast. Its hull reflected the faint glow of distant suns, covered in lines of steel and veins of light. The edges of the vessel glowed with blue illumination, running like rivers across its armored skin. Its engines pulsed softly as if breathing, steady and alive. The first alien fleet to see it did not expect fear. They came with confidence. Their ships had ruled star systems for centuries. Their leaders spoke of diplomacy, but their eyes looked for weakness. To them, humanity was still young, fragile, not yet ready to rise. They had prepared speeches that carried both promise and threat. They believed they could control the meeting, bend the humans to their will with words and power. But when the Titan class appeared, silence filled their bridges. The aliens did not speak, their eyes fixed on the colossal shadow that moved across the stars. For the first time in their history, they saw something that stole their voice. The commander of the alien fleet tried to steady himself. His words, rehearsed and heavy with pride, refused to leave his mouth. His crew whispered in low voices, their screens flashing with readings. The ship was impossible to measure. Their scanners stretched across its surface but returned only fragments. Weapons, defenses, layers of steel, everything beyond their design. Each time the data came back, it told them the same thing. The ship had no equal. Fear spread like fire across their fleet. Their ships, once proud, now looked small against the Titan. Their weapons, once sharp, now seemed fragile. They felt like hunters staring at a creature they could never wound. The Titan did not move quickly. It glided steady and patient, as if the stars themselves opened to let it pass. Every second that passed became heavier, pressing on alien minds. They wanted words, but humanity gave them none. No greeting, no demand, no warning. The warship's silence was more dreadful than any threat could have been. The aliens tried to send messages. They offered signals of peace, signals of unity. Their voices reached into the void, but no answer returned. The Titan simply existed, and its existence itself became the message. The alien commander looked at his officers. He saw fear in their eyes, and he knew they felt what he felt. The silence of the Titan was not empty. It was alive. It was deliberate. Humanity had chosen not to speak. Humanity had chosen to let the warship speak instead. And what it said was clear. The aliens felt their pride slipping away. They had come expecting to offer control, expecting to show power. Now their power felt like dust. Their speeches, prepared with such care, meant nothing. The Titan had taken away their words without firing a single shot. The longer the warship drifted before them, the more terror grew. The aliens began to whisper among themselves. Was this humanity's warning? Was this humanity's first true answer to the galaxy? The thought clawed into their minds. Still, the Titan said nothing. Its lights glowed. Its engines burned softly. It watched. The alien commander finally forced himself to speak. His words shook. He ordered another message sent, but this one did not carry dominance. It carried hesitation. It carried doubt. He asked for dialogue, not control. He asked for understanding, not superiority. But deep inside, he knew. This was no meeting between equals. This was no negotiation. This was the moment fear replaced all diplomacy. The Titan-class warship, humanity's silent shadow, had already won. The aliens, rulers of many systems, found themselves trembling before something they could not fight, could not understand, and could not resist. The silence of the ship weighed heavier than 1,000 guns. And the aliens realized too late. What they faced was not just a ship. It was humanity's first great message to the galaxy, and that message was carved not in words, but in fear. The alien fleet hung in formation, their ships drifting like nervous birds around a predator they had never seen before. Their hulls gleamed with polished metals, marked by the symbols of their empire, symbols once feared across galaxies. Yet here before the Titan class, those markings felt like fragile paint. Their commanders shifted in their seats, their eyes fixed on the silent giant that loomed before them. The alien leader, High Consul Tharun, had expected triumph. He had spoken boldly before departure, promising his council that humans would kneel. He carried words crafted with sharp precision, offers of alliance that were chains in disguise. He had imagined the meeting as a performance, one where he would stand tall and humanity would bow. But now, in the dark of space, that vision cracked. Tharoon leaned forward in his chair, staring at the endless surface of the Titan. The ship's hull reflected faint starlight like a frozen ocean, smooth and unbroken. His scanners reported weapons he could not name, systems buried deep within its body. His analysts whispered quietly, afraid to speak too loud, as if the ship itself was listening. Every reading screamed danger. Still, Tharoon told himself, it is only a machine. Yet something in his heart knew this was a lie. The Titan did not feel like a machine. It felt like a presence, a will, something ancient and watchful. Its silence pressed on his mind. His fleet carried thousands of soldiers. Their warships had conquered countless worlds. He tried to remember those victories, to remind himself of his empire's strength. But each memory slipped away like smoke. Against the Titan, every triumph of the past felt small, as if it belonged to a child's story. His second officer approached, eyes lowered. "Consul," she said, her voice quiet. "We cannot read its limits." The scans returned layered signals. There are weapons within weapons, shields behind shields. We do not understand its full design. Tharoon clenched his hands. He wanted to strike the table, to show command, but fear crept through him like cold water. "All ships hold position," he ordered. His voice echoed through the bridge, but no one looked reassured. Another officer spoke, trembling. "They have not sent words, Consul. Should we continue to broadcast?" Tharoon hesitated. His original plan had been to demand recognition, to declare the strength of his empire, to position humans as junior allies beneath their banner. But now those words felt like poison. He could not imagine speaking them in front of the Titan. The thought alone made his chest tighten. "Yes," he said finally. "Continue to broadcast, but soften the message. Speak of peace. Speak of cooperation." The officer obeyed, sending new signals through the void, soft and pleading. Yet the Titan gave nothing in return. No voice, no movement, only that endless silence. Whispers grew among the crew. Soldiers who had once laughed at the idea of humanity now avoided eye contact. Engineers who had once spoken proudly of their fleet's weapons now stared at the floor. The silence of the Titan was spreading, infecting their spirits. Tharoon felt it too. Every second became heavier, pressing down on him. The ship was not attacking, yet it was winning. It was not firing weapons, yet it was breaking his will. He thought of the council back home, the rulers who awaited his triumph. What would he tell them? That humanity had shown him a shadow and stolen his strength? No, he could not return in disgrace. He had to find control. "Prepare a fleet maneuver," he ordered. "Circle them. Show our strength." His words carried no conviction, but his officers obeyed. Alien ships moved cautiously, surrounding the Titan, forming a ring of power. Their engines flared, their weapons armed. But even in this formation, they felt like insects crawling around a mountain. Tharoon watched closely, waiting for a reaction. But the Titan did not move. Its silence deepened, as if mocking their efforts. The alien commander's heart sank. He realized the truth that none of his officers dared to say. It did not matter how many ships they brought. It did not matter what weapons they carried. The Titan class was beyond them. It was a message carved in steel, a symbol of humanity's arrival into the galaxy. One officer whispered too softly to hide his fear. "Perhaps we should retreat." Tharoon's face tightened. He wanted to punish the words, but they echoed in his own mind. Retreat. Escape. Flee from this silent shadow before it shattered them completely. But he could not retreat. To return without victory would mean dishonor. To return without control would mean his empire's pride was broken. Yet to stay meant something worse. To face the weight of humanity's silence until his spirit collapsed. The Titan glowed faintly, its lights shifting like eyes in the dark. The alien fleet froze, waiting for the storm. Tharoon swallowed hard. He had faced warlords, rebels, entire civilizations, but he had never felt fear like this. The Titan was not just a warship. It was a warning. And in that moment, High Consul Tharoon knew the truth. Diplomacy was gone. Fear had taken its place. The Titan-class warship did not move. It did not speak. It drifted in the black of space, vast and silent, like a mountain carried through the stars. Around it, the alien fleet circled carefully, engines glowing faintly, weapons armed but useless. Their eyes searched for reaction. None came. Inside the alien ships, fear grew with every moment. Messages of peace were sent. Signals of respect filled the airwaves. Still, the Titan gave no reply. The humans inside did not speak. They allowed their warship to do all the talking. The silence became heavier than any weapon. It pressed into the hearts of the aliens, each second louder than the last. A silence that was not weakness but power. A silence that carried meaning. Humanity did not rush to negotiate. Humanity did not ask for understanding. Humanity only showed them the Titan class and then fell quiet. To the aliens, this silence was worse than a threat. Threats could be measured, answered, defied. Silence could not. Silence left the imagination to do its work, and imagination was far more cruel. High Consul Tharoon stood at the center of his bridge. His hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. His officers looked to him for command, but their eyes betrayed despair. Why do they not answer? One officer whispered. Why do they show us this shadow and nothing more? No one had an answer. The humans inside the Titan could see everything. Their sensors watched every alien ship, traced every movement. Their weapons locked silently, invisible but ready. Yet they spoke no word. They allowed the aliens to drown in their own fear. Tharoon had lived his entire life believing diplomacy was a weapon. He had learned to shape words like blades, to bend weaker races with offers that sounded like gifts. But now, with the Titan standing before him, he understood a darker truth. Silence could cut sharper than words. The alien fleet grew restless. Soldiers whispered among themselves. Engineers refused to look at their screens, afraid of what they might see next. The silence of humanity had become a storm in their minds. Tharoon gave another order. Send more messages. Offer more. Promise more. His voice broke as he said it, and the bridge crew obeyed without conviction. More signals were sent into the void, offers of alliance, of shared resources, of peace. The Titan remained silent. The aliens began to imagine the minds behind the silence. They imagined human commanders sitting in their vast ship, watching without expression, deciding without hurry. Were the humans insulted? Were they laughing? Were they preparing war? No answer came. Only silence. The consul realized the truth. The humans were showing their nature. This warship was not simply a vessel. It was a message. Humanity would not bow. Humanity would not rush. Humanity would not explain. They had built a ship that spoke louder than words. And then they had let silence finish the sentence. The alien commander clenched his teeth. His empire had ruled worlds with fire and iron. Yet here, against a silent ship, he felt powerless. His mind replayed every past victory, but they seemed distant and meaningless. None of them mattered before the Titan. He looked out at his fleet circling nervously around the massive human vessel. His people had always believed fear could be controlled, but this was not fear they understood. This was not fear born of threats or violence. This was fear born of silence, fear born of something that felt endless, unknowable. Tharoon lowered his voice. Perhaps this is not a warship, he said to himself. Perhaps it is something more. His words carried through the bridge. No one replied, but all of them thought the same thing. On the Titan, the humans remained quiet. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had studied the alien empire. They had prepared for this first encounter. They understood arrogance better than anyone because humanity had carried arrogance too. Now they answered it with silence, and silence was working. The alien fleet continued to circle, smaller and smaller in their own eyes. The Titan never moved, never spoke, yet it swallowed their courage like a black hole swallowing light. Hours passed. Still no word came from the humans. The aliens began to whisper prayers. Some believed the Titan was alive, that it was no ship at all, but a being made of metal and light. Others believed it was only the first, and more waited in the dark behind it. Tharoon felt himself breaking. He knew his council had sent him to show strength. Instead, he was sinking into weakness. He could not return with silence as the only answer, but he also knew he could not break it. No force in his fleet could shatter the silence of the Titan. He closed his eyes. The silence followed him even there, deep and endless. When he opened them again, he saw the truth. Humanity had spoken, not with words, not with fire, but with silence. And that silence carried a single message: we are here. We are not afraid. We do not bow. The consul lowered his head. Fear had replaced all diplomacy. The silence of humanity had already won. The alien fleet had once arrived with confidence. Now they lingered in fear. Their ships still circled the Titan class, but every movement carried hesitation. Engines flickered weakly. Weapons remained armed but unused. The silence of the humans had broken more than their words. It had broken their spirit. High Consul Tharoon sat rigid in his chair. His heart beat loud in his chest, though he tried to hide it. Each second stretched like an eternity. The Titan did not move. It did not respond. Its silence weighed heavier than gravity. His officers waited, eyes lowered, afraid to speak. At last one broke the stillness. "Consul," she whispered, "our fleets are weakening. The soldiers cannot bear this silence much longer. They believe the humans will strike without warning." Tharoon's jaw tightened. He had been raised to believe in strength through words. His empire had mastered the art of diplomacy as a weapon. Yet here, before this silent warship, his weapons had turned useless. He had spoken, he had promised, he had pleaded. The humans had answered with nothing, and that nothing was stronger than any argument. "Send them another message," Tharoon said quietly. "Offer more. Promise them anything." His officers obeyed. Another signal crossed the void, this time with desperate tone. They offered technology. They offered resources. They offered peace on any terms. The Titan gave no answer. Its silence cut deeper with every attempt. Fear spread like infection. Whispers rose inside the alien ships. Crews muttered that perhaps the Titan was waiting for them to surrender completely. Others whispered it was a trap, a lure before the slaughter. The silence gave no clue, and that made it worse. Tharoon felt his throat dry. He had commanded wars before. He had crushed rebellions. Yet never had he felt so powerless. His empire had taught him that fear was a tool. But now, fear was his enemy, and it belonged to humanity. Another officer spoke, her voice shaking. "Consul, should we retreat? Before it destroys us, retreat." The word struck him like a blade. If he returned to the council in shame, his rule would be questioned. If he returned without victory, his empire's pride would bleed. Yet to stay here meant suffocation beneath the Titan's silence. He shook his head. "We do not retreat. We must hold." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the truth. Minutes turned to hours. Still the Titan drifted, vast and unmoving. It was not attacking. It was not negotiating. It was only existing. And its existence was destroying the alien fleet's will to resist. At last, Tharoon rose from his chair. His voice was hoarse but strong. "Prepare a final offer. Broadcast it on every channel. We will kneel if they demand it. We will pay if they require it. We will obey if they let us live." His words silenced the bridge. No one moved. Soldiers who once followed him with pride now stared with hollow eyes. Diplomacy had rotted into surrender. The message was sent. Across the void, the Titan listened. Or perhaps it did not. There was no way to know. It gave no answer. Its lights glowed faintly, a heartbeat of steel. The alien fleet shivered. They had given up everything in their offer. And still humanity had chosen silence. Tharoon's chest ached with shame. He had thought himself a master of words. Yet his empire's greatest weapon, diplomacy, had been shattered without a single shot fired. Fear had done what weapons could not. Fear had replaced every deal, every promise, every threat. In that silence, the aliens finally understood. Humanity had no interest in their offers. Humanity needed nothing from them. The Titan was not a bargaining table. It was a warning. One officer dared to whisper, "They will never treat with us. They want us to remember this forever." Tharoon closed his eyes. She was right. This moment was not for negotiation. It was a lesson. Humanity had shown them something greater than war. They had shown them silence as power. The alien commander opened his eyes and looked again at the Titan. The ship's guns shifted faintly, glowing with quiet light. The movement was small, almost casual, but it struck like thunder. Every alien officer froze, breath caught in their throats. That single motion killed the last hope for diplomacy. No words were left. Only fear. Tharoon lowered his head. The lesson was complete. The alien fleet could no longer hide its fear. Ships that once stood proud now drifted like broken leaves, their formation scattered. Engines glowed dim. Weapons stayed armed but without courage. The Titan-class warship still hovered silent and unmoved, its vast body cutting across the stars like a wall of steel. It had fired no weapon, yet it had destroyed them. High Consul Tharoon looked upon his bridge. His officers sat hollow-eyed, their pride stripped away. Soldiers whispered prayers instead of orders. Engineers stared at their screens without purpose. Diplomacy had not saved them. Arrogance had not protected them. The Titan had taken everything from them without lifting a hand. Tharoon's chest felt heavy. He had thought to control this meeting, to bring humanity under his empire's shadow. Instead, he now stood in humanity's shadow, smaller than he had ever imagined. He whispered to himself, though his voice was barely a breath. We came as rulers. We leave as beggars. At last he gave the order he had feared most. All fleets, withdraw. The command spread quickly through the alien vessels. Engines roared, slow at first, then stronger as ships began to turn. Formations collapsed into chaos. Pride was gone. What remained was only the desperate will to escape. The Titan did not follow. It did not move. Its silence remained cold and eternal. The alien fleets retreated across the stars, carrying with them a fear that would never fade. As distance grew, Tharoon turned for one last look. The Titan hung there still, its lights glowing softly as if watching. It had not destroyed them with fire, but with silence, and that silence had been worse than war. The consul closed his eyes, and he knew the truth. This encounter would haunt his people. They would tell stories of the day they met humanity's Titan-class warship. They would speak of silence heavier than weapons, of fear sharper than diplomacy. The memory would pass through generations like a wound that never healed. In the halls of the Empire, leaders would demand answers. Tharoon would give them none. What words could describe what they had seen? How could he explain that one ship had shattered the pride of an empire? He would not tell them of offers made in desperation, of promises given in shame. He would only say that humanity had arrived and humanity would not kneel. The first lesson had been written. Humanity had not spoken, yet every alien who survived now carried their message. The Titan class had said, "We are here. We are not weak. We are not yours to command." Fear had replaced all diplomacy. In the quiet of his own thoughts, Tharoon wondered what would come next. If this was humanity's first answer to the galaxy, what would their second be? If one Titan could silence an empire, what would a fleet of them do? He prayed he would never learn the answer. Across the void, the Titan remained a dark monument of human will. Its silence echoed louder than any weapon, reaching across stars and into the hearts of all who had witnessed it. The warship had not just won a battle. It had changed the rules of the galaxy. From that day forward, the story spread. Among alien worlds, children whispered of the Titan in fear. Soldiers spoke of it with trembling voices. Leaders reshaped their maps and their plans. Humanity had become more than a rising race. Humanity had become a shadow that stretched across the stars, and the shadow spoke only once, not with fire, not with words, but with silence. The lesson was eternal.